I care to live only to entice people to look at nature's loveliness. This is a quote from the father of national parks, writer John Muir, expressing his devotion to convincing all to appreciate the beauty of nature and recognize the need to preserve it. This mission was shared by many of Muir's fellow artists of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, especially photographers, for photography is unique in its ability to truly capture all the elegance and allure of a natural landscape. These photographers advocated for the conservation of the natural wonders of the western United States, and the stunning photographs of some compelled the government to establish those lands as national and state parks. I myself am an amateur photographer, particularly interested in nature and landscape, and I have experienced firsthand the excitement and magic of photographing America's gorgeous protected parks. In the late 1800s, artists like Carleton Watkins and William Henry Jackson established the field of conservation photography. Photographers such as Ansel Adams greatly furthered the field in the 20th century, and various artists and organizations continue to use their work to advocate for conservation today. During the mid to late 19th centuries, artists began focusing on nature as the subject of their art. This included painters, writers, and eventually photographers. Since the ability to take photos was a fairly new technology at the time, the art was not yet widespread, but a few pioneers in landscape photography were able to have a significant impact on the preservation of pristine lands of the West. Carleton Watkins, having moved to California in the years of the gold rush, began working for photographers there, became interested in the art himself, and eventually started a photography business of his own. In 1861, Carleton Watkins traveled to the Yosemite Valley, and the photographs he captured there made him, as well as the scenery of Yosemite, famous across all of America. The U.S. National Park Service suggests that in 1864, members of Congress were shown some of Watkins's pieces, and their stunning portrayal of the scenery of Yosemite contributed to the passing of the Yosemite Act later that year, which established the valley as a protected state park. Another artist of prominence in the nature conservation movement was William Henry Jackson. Also drawn to the West in the 1860s, he started a successful photography studio with his brother in Nebraska. According to the International Photography Hall of Fame, he soon began to photograph the local native tribes of the area, and growing tired of portraits, he eventually ventured to Wyoming to capture the vast natural landscapes there. His growing reputation as an artist got him noticed by Dr. Ferdinand Hayden, who recruited Jackson to the U.S. Geological Survey. With the survey, he was able to capture never-before-seen places all across the western U.S. As explained in the National Park Service's biography of Jackson, his photos from his travels gained unprecedented popularity and praise. They proved to America the existence of the rumored astonishing beauty of the falls and geysers of Wyoming, California, and surrounding states. His stunning photographs of the Yellowstone River in particular eventually compelled Congress to preserve the area as Yellowstone National Park in 1872. Now, although these early photographers were able to have significant impact on the preservation of protected parks, none became as involved and devoted to the effort of environmentalism as did photographer Ansel Adams in the early 20th century. From the day he first visited Yosemite Valley in 1916, at the mere age of 14, Adams knew that his life had been colored and modulated by the great earth gesture of the Sierra. This enlightening experience inspired him to move to the valley and spend all his free time scrambling up peaks, exploring the park, and of course, taking photographs, many of which are well known today. During this time, photography was not yet widely recognized as a true fine art. Robert Turnage of the Ansel Adams Gallery writes that it was regarded as just too realistic and mechanical, and not as emotional or expressive as things like painting or music. Now, Adams was a rising concert pianist, but his passion for capturing natural landscapes, mixed with the influence from his fellow aspiring photographers, led him to drop music and pursue photography full-time. Adams allied with these other photographers of like minds, and the group received harsh criticism from other prominent artists of the time for their focus on nature, typically using cityscapes as their subjects themselves. Their critics argued that the subjects of landscape art were not socially significant. Landscape photographer Edward Weston responded to this criticism by saying that natural landscapes have far more important bearings on the human race of any locale than excrescences called cities. Adams, Weston, and their peers believed deeply in the importance of nature to human life, and they devoted their careers to documenting it and advocating for it. In 1936, Adams was sent by the Sierra Club to present some of his photographs of the Kings Canyon and Sequoia areas to a national parks conference in the hope that his photographs would have a similar effect that those of Watkins and Jackson had had several decades before. His art received high praise from many, and the Kings Canyon National Park was established in the year 1940. Adams continued to be an outspoken voice in environmentalism, and he opposed such things as commercial resortism in national parks and the destruction of landscapes for infrastructure. He went on to produce some of the most well-known landscape art of the time. Adams's actions for environmentalism continued to influence and help shape the modern conservation photography movement we see today. Magazines such as National Geographic and BBC Wildlife use breathtaking photos to inspire awe and respect for the natural world, as well as heartbreaking images of species losing their homes due to deforestation or melting ice to evoke empathy for these animals in their audience. Other organizations, like the International League of Conservation Photographers, host expeditions for wildlife photographers to capture natural phenomena, as well as document the detrimental effects of climate change, oil fracking, mineral extraction, and other human-induced factors on the ecosystems around the world. The founder of the International League of Conservation Photographers and pioneer in the modern conservation photography movement is Christina Mittermeier. She's an extremely successful photographer as well as environmentalist, and she has accomplished a great deal towards the protection of pristine environments against climate change and other damaging forces. In addition to the League, she co-founded the nonprofit organization Sea Legacy with fellow conservation photographer Paul Nicklin. It can be found on Nicklin's website that he is an acclaimed wildlife photographer, filmmaker, marine biologist, conservationist, public speaker, and writer. His art focuses mainly on the majestic life of the Arctic and our oceans, and he's an outspoken advocate for the protection of marine life. Together and with the help of their team, Mittermeier and Nicklin have spread the love and awe they feel for the natural world and its delicate complexities. The intricate storytelling of their work raises awareness to the damage humans have done to the planet and its species, and it motivates millions to join their cause. Now, as you can see, the art of conservation photography has a long and moving history, and the movement continues to live on today. It was introduced by Carlton Watkins and William Henry Jackson, who, using their compelling photographs, helped preserve Yellowstone and Yosemite as protected state parks. Photography became a core element of environmentalism when Ansel Adams photographed and advocated for Yellowstone and Kings Canyon, and his legacy is carried on today by those like Christina Mittermeier and Paul Nicklin, who communicate the danger our actions pose to wildlife through their powerful art. This artistic field is vastly important to our battle against climate change and our ongoing process of converting to a more sustainable society. The statistics and the numbers may prove to some that we are in trouble, but nothing will convince the people of the world to change their ways like the power of a photograph. Thank you.